Both types of sports with shoot and tour. Football discussion on the internet.
Been a minute, hasn't it? Been a minute, Playboy. Yes, like the stream. Hello, welcome everybody to Both Types of Sports with Shoot Not Tour. Football discussion on the internet. Would you believe me if I told you? And God bless the young man. I don't blame young people because times have changed. It's not necessarily their fault that the prosperity and opulence of future generations has led to a less strenuous lifestyle for the generation coming up after them. We tend to spend a lot of time talking about that and how everybody's soft and hard men create good times, then good times create soft men. And that's where we are right now. And it might be true. But I don't think I'm going to change it by bitching about it. So, like, when people just tend to go off on young people, I'm susceptible to it from time to time. But usually I think it's mostly out of envy and coveting. And it certainly is for me. So I was texting with my young Padawan learner, Gigantor, today. And until he shows up on this show, it's just I'm just going to assume that he's not. And to his credit, he's been trying to do the football show with me for the past couple of weeks. And I've been incredibly busy. Like, I've been down at the beach and I've been having to double up and record episodes on a Monday. And so it's been different for the Chad Duke show, which of course is my primary focus. Not that there isn't a shitload of shit going on in the world of football, which we will discuss today. Sean Salisbury will join us today. Ryan Halloran is scheduled to join us today as well. So I'm looking forward to all of that. But I was talking and speaking with Tor, who was trying to do, there's another show that we've been planning to do for 100 years that we haven't been able to figure out. And he's not going to be able to do any of them next week, I don't think, because he's going to be in Costa Rica for an entire week. This is, of course, on the heels of being in Japan for a month and being in, where else? Ibiza. I didn't even know where Ibiza was. Like, it's just such a different world for them than it is for me, that I had to look up where Ibiza is, because that's where all the rappers go to hold up giant bottles of, whatever the champagne du jour is, while they're sitting around a pool. I don't know that anyone gets in the pool, but they do like to sit around a pool. I can't even explain to you how boring sitting around a pool sounds and is for me. I've done it once or twice in my life. I remember early on when we were doing LeVar and Dukes and we would go out to the Super Bowl or to the WrestleMania or to what have you. LeVar would want to be around the pool and he would, hey man, you want to go out and get something to eat? Why don't you guys come over? I'm at the pool. I've got a cabana. It's like, well, then what? Are we getting in the pool? Okay. Then what? I've never understood it. That seems to be very, very important to a large portion of the population. So God bless him. He'll be in Costa Rica. Our numbers are shit today. I don't know why. Hit the like button. Maybe that will help. No idea. But we're going to do a show for you regardless of all of the trials and tribulations. And hopefully you subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. If you are not already, the links are there at the bottom of the page. They're in the description as well. We have a shitload of shit to get to on the program today. I would imagine we're going to spend a bulk of our time discussing which is batshit crazy. This was a developing story as I was recording the Chad Duke show yesterday. So when that goes up at 2, there's going to be a couple of comments that are a little dated, but Bill Belichick, of course, has accepted the role as head coach of UNC. No idea how many people actually thought this was a possibility when Adam Schefter first reported this, but we will be discussing it. I'm going to ask Sal's about it. I'm going to ask Halloran about it. I've got some thoughts. People are taking their shot. I mean, I don't know how anybody can sit here and definitively say either way that this man will find success in college, because I don't even know how you define college athletics anymore with the NIL and transfer portal nonsense changing the landscape. And by the way, that's already run one of Bill Belichick's closest buddies out of the sport, presumably in Nick Saban. So we'll get to all that. I want to talk about A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts and their feud. I'm fucking sick of wide receivers. I am fucking sick of wide receivers. I'm sick of their bitching and complaining. And how come no running backs act the way wide receivers do? They want the ball. They can control the outcome of the game just as much, if not more so, than any wide receiver. Why do no tight ends act the way that wide receivers do? A.J. Brown basically coming out and criticizing the passing game after the game against the Carolina Panthers. And really, let's call it what it is, being envious of the exposure and the impact Saquon Barkley is having on the game. That's what it sounds like to me. It became a criticism of Jalen Hurts. Another teammate weighed in another radio interview, and here you have arguably the second best team at worst in the NFC infighting while they should be at their zenith. It's why I don't think they're going to go anywhere. I just don't think. I look at Nick Sirianni and I look at guys like Dan Campbell or Mike Tomlin or anybody else that you respect, and I get it. Andy Reid kind of plays it fast and loose, right? Like Travis Kelce got up and physically attacked Andy Reid on the sidelines. And we just kind of push that aside because they win so many Super Bowls. There are coaches that play it fast and loose, but Nick Sirianni ain't no fucking Andy Reid. And it's one of the reasons why I don't think they're going to end up going anywhere, no matter how good Saquon Barkley is, no matter how good A.J. Brown is, or, Hurts or fucking Devontae Smith-Pellier, any of those guys. Want to remind you that both types of sports are sponsored and presented by Dream Stay Getaways. When you're booking your Florida theme park vacation this winter, it is cold as shit out here at Oakton Falls. Avoid booking fees. Book these awesome houses directly. Go to dreamstaygetaways.us. They got multiple houses inside of a resort, access to the parks. You want to go to Universal to see the Velocicoaster. You want to go to Disney to see that fucking Disney Bukkake. You got kids. These houses are perfect. Take a look. The images are on the website. They're on Instagram. And you avoid all those horrible booking Airbnb fees. Book directly. I can't recommend it enough. Dreamstaygetaways.us. Perfect houses if you want to get out of the cold and go down to sunny Florida. Hit them parks, and they are presenting us all season long. Make it possible for me to pay everybody. I used to pay Tor when he came on the show, but I certainly pay, the people that come on, and we like it when our sponsors help out with that, especially if it's a great sponsor. So go to dreamstaygetaways.us. See for yourself. First and foremost, I thought you guys would like to see this. It is the holiday season, so whoop-de-woo and dickory-dock, and don't forget to pull out your cock. Last night finally got us where we need to be at Oakton Falls. That is the Sylvan Glade at Oakton Falls. If you're watching, if you're listening, I posted a picture. You can go check it out. You just got to find out where it is. I think it's on X. All of the ceramic trees. Let me tell you something. Patience, thy name is carrying giant vintage antique ceramic Christmas trees down the staircase when you own a dog that doesn't know boundaries. And that's what the Shootster was doing for about 45 minutes. If you're looking at this picture right now, you see all those little stars on the top. Whoo, boy, are those breakable. Those are breakable. You got to carry those down separately, and then they all got the cords. You've got to manage the cords. You got to get it plugged in. This takes a minute to get set up. And again, if you're listening, there's a picture on @Chad it is my ceramic Christmas tree vintage collection. I don't buy any of that new shit. And I want to keep the motherfuckers up year round. I keep Christmas with me all through the year. As you guys know, the Sesame Street, the Muppets gang taught us that many years ago. But the wife is like, please, can we not? So I have to carry them all up around January. And then I start politicking to getting them downstairs in October, but she's got me now sleight of handed because we got the Halloween decorations and the Thanksgiving decorations. And she's like, well, you want to respect all the holidays. And you're like, don't use my own words against me, woman. So the Sylvan Glade is up, and it is beautiful around my neck of the woods. I got about 4 more of them, too. I can find space. God forbid I can find space for the rest of my ceramic Christmas trees. We're going to have ourselves a hootenanny around the house. I think Sean is trying to get booted up backstage. I'm going to give him a chance to get situated. It's one of those one of those days where I've only got him for half an hour, and if we had 10 times that, it wouldn't be enough to get to everything. But I always do appreciate his time. And the gentleman joins us, as he is always on the go, Mr. Sean Salisbury from the Sean Salisbury Show, all the way from the H. Sals, I wish there was something for us to talk about today, buddy. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you? Good to be on.
Boy, well, let's start. You work with young football players. You talk about football players for a living. Bill Belichick is a guy that we've covered for his entire professional career, and some would say he's the best to ever do it. Sals, I don't know about you, but I love the striking. You don't want to hire me. I'm not going to give you another opportunity to say no. I've got a gig. I'm going to go try something new in my 70s that a lot of people with 20 years my younger wouldn't have the balls to do. In principle, I love the way it shakes up the industry, but I mean, how are we going to look back at this moment 10 years from now when maybe the greatest NFL head coach of all time decides to try his hand at the collegiate level in a tumultuous time in his 70s?
I actually love that he wants this journey and challenge. And, you know, when people say, well, he's too disconnected, well, when he was in the NFL, wasn't he coaching 18, 19, or 19, 20, 21, or 22, 25-year-olds? They're young. And I know that the ironic thing is he wanted to get out because all the business side of the NFL, and he's getting into even a bigger business pain in the ass with college football. But what do all great coaches or players or anybody great at business that you know, Chad, and at least in my world, the great ones, it's not the destination, it's the journey to get there and to prove they can be great at something else. So what? Let's say he goes in 5 years from now, we're saying, what an average run. And still the greatest NFL coach we've ever had. I like that he's putting his balls on the line and is willing to take the risk of having people criticize him. And if I'm putting myself in his going back, and I know times have changed, but I'm thinking, okay, I'm a dad of a number one recruit, or in my situation when I was a top recruit, would I have wanted to play for Don Shula in college or Tom Landry? And the answer is hell yes. Because the experience you get, hell, you might even be afraid to go in and ask for more NIL money because you're afraid to death to go talk to Bill Belichick. So that might help North Carolina. Hey, man, by the way, Bill wants to see you. I don't want any more money, dude. I just want to play for Belichick. I mean, if you're trying to hone up your skills, which maybe that's not the case for a lot of young kids, you're going to the right guy. But I do love the challenge. Well, listen, we don't always think about it the opposite way, Chad. What have we started to do in the NFL and college maybe the last 15 years? We've gone from a veteran guy who's been around to hiring a 30-year-old, hiring Sean McVay in the NFL, hiring the young guys who think different, that aren't always just calling curl flat. They're calling combinations of routes we never saw before. So why can't we do this? And remember the coach who went there for the second time, who got fired this past year and has had a hell of a career. Coach Brown wasn't exactly 25.
Right.
He made an impact when he first got there. Belichick knows football. There's 11 on 11. The whole key for him is, to me, it's not, do you want to play for Bill Belichick? Who wouldn't? It's the staff he hires, the people around him, his basic capologist, meaning his NIL guy, to surround himself with some veterans and some youth that can go into a living room. But if I got a number one recruit, I want to hear what Belichick has to say, how he's going to make my kid better and give him a chance. So why not think outside? Well, okay, you're North Carolina. You're going to just hire, let's go get, no disrespect because he's good at Dan Mullen, or go get somebody else from another place. Go get Barry Odom, who's at Purdue, good coach, hell of a coach at UNLV, but why not Belichick? Maybe, well, what if he has the same, when Saban went to the NFL? Yeah, but what if he all of a sudden coaches it up in North Carolina, is now a top 5 team because he gets recruits that actually want to play football? And I know this about Bill, and I've known him a long time. He wants smart players. And a lot of times smart guys will think about, how do I get better on the field? Not, can I go get more NIL money? And he'll lose players, but he'll also get some. So I don't have a problem with it. I love it. I love the fact that he wants to challenge. Only the coward would run from it. He's running to it. I don't have a problem. And you know what I'd implement if I was college football with all this NIL, just to get off the beaten track here for 1 second? If we have the NIL with all this in collective and transfer portal, that those kids can get up and do what they want, just like coaches could before we open the gates for the kids to get paid, which they should get paid. We do need some regulation.
Yeah.
Why can't we cut kids and why can't they cut a kid from a scholarship and say, free up another one? 3 games into the season, he's underachieved. They're pros now. Why can't we cut him? Why can't I trade the kid from North Carolina to North Carolina State before he bolts on me for a freshman red shirt that I like at North Carolina State, that the guy's under a 5-star's underachieving for me? So why can't I cut him in? Why can't we have an NIL salary cap? Why can't we? All that stuff just to think about. I love the hire, and if I'm North Carolina, you got to think outside the box. You ain't winning a national championship in North Carolina in football unless you think outside the box. That's just the reality of NIL.
I also think, Sal's, that this is a condemnation, maybe not a condemnation, but it certainly is a commentary about the NFL. Like this is about GMs not wanting to give up control, right? And if it's Dallas, it's about the owner not wanting to get up control. This is arguably the greatest head coach of all time. And you don't just have teams that are bad that need head coaches, because that happens every year. You have teams that are underachieving, that have talent, that probably are a coach away, a guy that people respect and get in there and get more out of the talent. If anybody doesn't think that's happening in Dallas and some of maybe Miami, some of these other places, they're crazy. Is this more also a symptom of the fact that Belichick, Robert Kraft must be pouring poison in these owners' ears, saying like, you don't want this guy in your building because you're not going to be able to keep up your level of status. So these general managers, I can't imagine that Belichick did this, Sal, without having a very good working knowledge that he was going to get passed over again, just like he was whatever happened with Atlanta last year, the other opportunities he didn't get. And to me, that's kind of a damning situation for the NFL right now, that they wouldn't feel comfortable hiring someone that is as credible as Bill Belichick because of what comes with it.
100%. And let me just send a message to Mr. Kraft. The same things you're bitching about, same thing you love to put 6 rings on your damn finger. So save it. And I have all the respect in the world for Robert Kraft, but stop it. Okay, it's the nature of business. Robert Kraft became a big money guy and doing his thing. Somewhere along the line, he pissed people off with power along the way to get to where he is. All great, big business, big billionaires. You think unless they got there and handed down money from somebody else, they got their leadership ain't popular. Doing those things ain't popular. And Belichick may not be popular, but he put rings on your finger and increased your franchise's value by about $3 billion. So save that. That's real rich. Save that for somebody else, okay? Secondly, I 100, if you're bad-mouthing him and doing it, that's all the reason why I want to go get it. Quick story. When I was going through college or deciding on where to go, and I loved UCLA and Terry Donahue, and I loved USC and John Robinson, but I was the USC guy. But one of the recruiters, when I went on my UCLA recruiting trip, drove me over to USC in that area. And you know the area surrounding the Coliseum. Back then it was worse, and it was tough, and it was the hood and all that, and a beautiful campus in. When I went on my USC recruiting trip, they drove me around USC, not UCLA. And UCLA's in Beverly Hills and Bel Air, all the rich stars and everything. And it hit me hard as a 17-year-old. And you want to know why? One was trying to convince me why I shouldn't go to the other school. The other was selling what they do. And that was you. And I still think about it to this day. So, yeah. And he probably did go through and say, maybe they're going to go through. I'm 72. They don't want me. I want too much power. Well, too much power won him 6 Super Bowl rings and a good quarterback. So I'm okay with that. And so I'll judge him by myself. And you are damn right. Not just why he didn't. I mean, why we sat and think, well, he had to know. He also had to know when he went to North Carolina that what kind of power they're going to give him, what kind of collective and NIL he's going to deal with, what kind of general manager he can put in place if he is, or it's going to be him. And North Carolina knew what they were getting when he walked through the door, and maybe they want some discipline. Maybe they want to change. So, and maybe Bill, just maybe, he learned from Cleveland to New England, second chance around. Maybe just Bill also, Bill's got a great sense of humor. He's been a roadie for Bon Jovi. Maybe he also learned being out of football for a year, not soften, but you got to approach it a little bit different. You're recruiting parents as too. But what made him successful is still football and how to be no stone unturned. And if you really did go in with a 400-page booklet on why to get the job, he will be prepared. And if you're a guy that doesn't want to go to North Carolina, and he develops players too. So if you're a 3-star and you go and become a 5-star, or if you're a 5-star, I don't want to go. It's too much trouble. He's too hard on me. I don't want your ass in the building anyway. So I always love it, the fact that because he wanted power or because he was too powerful or wasn't fun, that all of a sudden you don't want him. You want to win and sell it like Brady said. It may not have been fun, but I got to know what is fun is winning Super Bowl. So I just, the disdain for him, and he does it his way, and he always has, but North Carolina needed to do something different, and they did. But I assure you, Bill Belichick didn't walk into he didn't need the money. He didn't walk into North Carolina's building saying, he might have said, Chad, like you said, and I agree that the NFL isn't going to do this, so let me try something else. But North Carolina's brilliance to bring him in, you damn well know they have better been prepared with all their offering, not the money, but how they're going to go about their plan, work their plan, plan their work and work their plan. So I have zero problem with it. If it doesn't work, Well, hell, is it working for Lincoln Riley at my alma mater, SC, right now? No. So it happens, and we've got into this. It's got to be a young guy. Plenty of young dudes are getting fired too. Are you a good football coach, and are you a leader of men? And can you manage tasks and lead men? You don't manage men and manage players. You lead them, and then you manage tasks. And he's going to have to find a bunch of guys to help manage those tasks. But I'll tell you this, North Carolina will be disciplined, and they'll know how to play football. Now, whether they get the recruits or not, but I'll bet you Bill does it the right way. And my gut is you probably don't want to play North Carolina if he gets the players he wants.
The ageism part of it, there's too many isms that we talk about, Sals, but it is wild to me considering Andy Reid is probably one of the top 5 head coach all time. He's 66 years old. Nobody's worried about his weight or his age and if you want to take Matt Patricia and Pete Carroll and compare energy levels a couple of years back, I don't know what we're talking about, but the analogy that always comes back to me is the one where I got a guy that's batting 359, but he's tentative. He's not great. He doesn't want to get up there in the box. I got to have a one right now. I got a guy that's batting 189 and says, give me the bat. I'm getting in there. I'm knocking it over the park. Like, the mindset is so important to me, especially when you get to that level. And this is the greatest of all time, arguably. Sals, he could be grab assing with Pat McAfee and Eli Manning and Peyton Manning for another. I mean, that pays really well. He's good at it. It's easier. You can sleep in. And he wants to go back and grind. And the grind in college football, you know how it is. It's year round. You're recruiting as well. I just love the fact that he wants this. And it's an ACC school. Like if we were talking SEC or whatever, okay, it's different. But he can make an impact regardless of what the ultimate outcome is at North Carolina. I love the mindset that he still is obsessed with getting in there and coaching football players.
That's why the dude's got 6 rings or more than that, 6 head coaching rings and a couple other assistant coaching rings. And I know this about most coaches that love it. Like for me, when I train a quarterback, when people come to me, the first thing I ask the parents or the kid, first of all, do you love playing? Do you love it? And if the parents love it, but the kid doesn't, I got a lot of work to do. Yeah. If the kid loves it and the parents don't, I'm not worried about that. The kid will convince them. I got to know if you love it and have passion. Why are we mad at a guy who's 72 and still has energy and plenty of it that isn't ready to go for the media, which is a little more country club, and everybody telling Bill how great he is, and he's good at it because he got more. He really is. But that job's not going anywhere. Anytime Belichick walks away from coaching, there'll be a 7-figure job plus waiting on him. The Peyton Mannings of the world know, and the McAfees, whoever. He'll do that. He still loves it. So why are we mad at a guy who loves it? I always love it when people say, well, retire. Why? He loves it. He's 72. Apparently a 24-year-old that he's dating right now thinks he's got a lot of passion too.
God bless him.
God bless him. You damn right. You damn right. So the fact that he wants to grind, what a novel concept. We got a guy who wants to help make a difference, win games, coach at 72, and wants to grind instead of sit there and do something that everybody else tells me he's supposed to do. That's the cop-out. Put it this way, coaching ain't always going to be there because at some point in time, he will be too old to do it. The media ain't going anywhere. Bill Belichick's a legend. I friggin' love it. This is one where I'd actually go in person, and I'd love Carolina. I love that area. I'll go watch. I'd like to go watch him work at practice. He's one of my favorites. We can all still learn something. And regardless of how the football team turns out, these kids are going to walk away. Some are going to go coach. Some may go play. Most of them aren't going to make it to the NFL. But I guarantee you they're going to walk away saying, he impacted me. And I'm okay with it. So sounds cheesy, but it's a fact. I love that we're in a side. Oh, he's not 35. There's plenty of 35-year-old hacks that think they can coach because they can't handle pressure. I'm all in. The age has zero to do with it for me. It's can he relate? Will he get kids to buy in? And if he does, there will be no program in the country more prepared than Belichick's. One last thing. How old is Nick Saban right now? It's got to be upper 60s, pushing 70. Yeah. How did he do the last 5 or 10 years coaching?
He did pretty well.
Yeah, you think? So point is, so that's it. It's like a running back when he's 30 and has a 70-yard game. Over the hill, get rid of him like Derrick Henry. How'd that work out for the old man running back in Baltimore? And now, so if you're 69 and you're a great coach, but once you hit 70 and you go coach, stop it. And here's the advantage for Bill. He used to coach pro football, right? You know what else he's coaching at North Carolina? Pro football.
Right.
And you know the reasons why.
Yeah. Saban's 73. It is interesting, by the way,
he's older than Bill. He's older than Belichick. There you go.
But it is interesting that they're close, and you'd have to assume one of the reasons why Saban decided, hey, I'm still having success, but I don't want to deal with this shit is because it's such a changing landscape. And you made a great point. We don't have a salary cap. They can't cut. They're still trying to figure out what this is with NIL. And he's entering at a tumultuous time where, yeah, you can be prepared, but it's an evolving situation. It's like launching into space. Like, you're going to encounter stuff that you didn't think was going to take place. So that part about that component also makes it very interesting. Like, if he comes up with the blueprint on how to operate at a professional level, because as you point out, it's a professional sport now, and Belichick is the mastermind of all that, that could very easily happen as him not finding success at UNC. That's why it's such a pivotal point, I think, in the history of football.
And let me walk you through real quick a few, when we say the best coaches in the world don't operate in success. They know how to get growth and operate in chaos.
Yeah,
they do it. They do. It's like organized chaos. The Brady deflate gate. All the things that Bill went through the NFL. You think he's worried about a North Carolina media guy or me and you criticizing him, or some recruit that's 20? And people, hey, Bill and Bill are tight. I mean, Bill and Nick are tight. Obviously, he's on his staff in Cleveland. They think the same. What an irony. I mean, what a novel. The Belichick's best coach of all time in the NFL, and Saban in college football, they're friends. They do it the same way. They like smart players. One's just frustrated with it. Yet the thing that got him out of football is the same things he's talking about on the air on College Game Day, which is great, and he's phenomenal. And Bill, they can like each other, but personalities are different. And Bill, after 3 years, may be tired of it. Bill, after 5 years, may say, you know what? I kind of like this gig. I'm going to see you when I go the paternal route where you play coach till you're 90. But the thing comes back to it. I want, if I'm the athletic director and the president of a university, I want my coach to love to grind. And quite frankly, we're at a time when trying to convince people to do that a lot of times, corner cutters, and Bill will not cut corners. And if you're not disciplined, go play somewhere else. That's okay. Right. There's enough good football players. And like I said, he's in the player development business. He'll be fine. I do. I friggin' love it. And I'm so glad he's doing it. And I'm actually kind of glad he's doing college, because I want to see it. We saw some NFL guys, college guys go to the NFL. I want to see this. I want to see what happens if all of a sudden he turns it around and North Carolina becomes one of the top. And put it this way, Elsie, you think North Carolina's NIL is going up or down? Wait, what do you think? What do you think?
Everything's going up. Everything.
Yeah. If I'm a billionaire in North Carolina and my name's Michael Jordan, I might be giving a little bit more to the university now, because they say, oh, the collective. Yeah, let me throw a little more in there so Bill has some operating costs. Yeah, I'm in.
Well, think about how big his web and his coaching tree. I mean, how many players' kids are going to send their kid for Bill Belichick to coach him up? It's going to be wild to see.
Hey, there's a guy, you know who people have asked me all the time. I love, Andy Reid's one of my favorite guys in the world. Sean, who would you like your if you had kid back in the day, who would you want them to go play for if they recruited? And my names came up, like, at that time, Coach Bob Knight, then that Belichick. I loved Parcells. Vince Lombardi, Don Shula. And I know those nowadays. I mean, I'd love to go to Sean McVay. I get it, but I don't care about the age. Can you coach them and make them better people, make them better players, and maximize their potential? If you can maximize the building, which he's done plenty of times in his career, and who's to say that he's not going to get the number one recruited quarterback in the country at some point in time, like he got Brady, and turn him into a championship guy? Yeah. The bandwidth, which Bill Belichick's coming with, will be as... You think it's Bill Belichick or Barry Odom? And I love Barry. Congrats in Purdue. Who do you think's got more bandwidth than that one when it comes to connections? Yeah. Let's let it play out and see if Bill's dedication is what we think it is.
You mentioned Landry. I can't imagine Tom Landry doing this, and you forget that he had 20 consecutive winning seasons. I bring it up because he's 5th on the all-time list. Andy Reid is still active at 296. I guess you could argue he has a chance to catch Shula. What is the most surprising about this, Sal's, is we're talking about, I think, 14 games in between Belichick and Don Shula for all time. And we know that's important to him. And we know that's something that he's competitive and he would like to have that record. So for him to walk away from that, maybe in 5 years, he's built this program up. Somebody gives him a shot in the NFL again, but you would assume that's not the case. You would assume that he's choosing North Carolina over the all-time most wins record as far as that goes. That's fairly shocking to me, considering what we assume Bill Belichick's mindset is.
And it's nothing's going to ruin his NFL legacy. We know that. And with his, and you mentioned the record, but isn't that even validate more what we're saying of why he's doing this?
Sure.
Not about the money, not about the rest of it. He held out and maybe goes and takes a job in the NFL as a head coach and turns around. But think about this. What he's putting his ass on the line for something. What's he got to gain?
Right.
In truth? What is he? Because even if he coaches, let's say he coaches another 8 or 10 years, guess what he's not going to do? Catch his buddy who's on college game day and be a better college coach than him. Not enough time to do that, but he can make an impact. So yeah, I think it speaks volumes to the guy isn't doing this for no pub. Bill doesn't care about that. We know that. It's not about the money. He's got plenty of that. Hell, but I would have gone it with an open checkbook. Any open job. Hell, at SC, if they, and I love Lincoln, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done for Lincoln rather than that. If I was, I'd say, well, dude, I don't know. What do you want to sign for? You want $15 million? We'll give it to you for 5 years, $20 million. I'm good. And a lot of these NFL coaches, to get back a point you made earlier, it's no longer you leave college to go to the NFL for the money. Guys at times now are leaving the NFL to go to college. The money matches head coaches now. It's a lot. Sometimes it's far longer term that you're going to be committed. So it's a pretty good gig. So this speaks volumes to a guy. He's got everything to lose he's old, or why did he come to college? Or he can't recruit. And what he's got to win making a difference. But from the public is, great, it worked. And if he has success this year, guess what they're going to say? Oh, let me see you sustain it. Can he handle the everyday grind of recruiting? And it is much tougher to be a college coach with the off seasons, going to high school stadiums and recruiting kids, and telling a 17-year-old how great he is when you say, well, listen, I'm going to tell the next 5-star the same thing. And then in the NFL, it's year-round, full-time, all the time for these guys. So what's he got to gain? He loves to coach football, and I don't have one problem with that. I want that in my room. I want that from a player, and I sure as hell want it from my coach. To me, there's not one negative about this. So I'm being honest. There isn't. It's just if he loves it, he'll find a way to adapt and adjust. He spent his whole career on the sidelines, adapting and adjusting in game and during the week. Why in the hell would it be any different for a 20-year-old pro? Because that's what they are.
All right, I know you got a tight window here, Sal's, but the Dolphins are coming to town there in Houston, 6-7. They've looked, very impressive with Tua back under the center and getting comfortable, but they're on the outside looking in. They're highly motivated. You and I talked about Houston last week, and this doesn't look like a team that is, built to threaten the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. I looked at the over-under 47. I know there's a newfound respect for rushing the football in Houston, but I really like the over in that game. Am I nuts in expecting a shootout for these two teams, both of which have a lot to play for right now?
No, because they're going to play fast. And we know Miami, they got as much team speed as there is in a league. No Petrie out for the season. No Aziz Al-Shair, he's out. So defense is going to have to come at him. And the way Miami offsets anybody's pass rushes, they get the ball out on time. They will not hold the ball. They'll play action, and they'll be moving people all around to see if the Texans can adjust. And the Texans' defense is, quite frankly, the strength of their team. But with that, Miami's weakness is on the defensive side of the ball. To me, the guarantee of the week is the over in the Texans-Miami game. And think about the pressure the Texans are facing, not just on the field, but 3 games in 10 or 11 days. And it's Miami and Baltimore and Kansas City. And if you don't win them all, there's a chance you go 0-3. Miami's desperate, so they're going to play desperate, meaning everything's going to be urgent. The Texans have a little lead, but at the end of this 3-game run, we could be staring at Christmas Day if they lose that against, I think it's Baltimore. That would be 8-8, depending on what Indy does. So there's urgency on both sides. You're going to see them play fast. For the Texans to win, you better disrupt the rhythm of Tua, because his physical straight isn't Josh Allen, but if he's going out time and the run after the catch is enormous for the team speed of the Dolphins. Give me the over, and I would almost feel like that's my lock of the week when it comes to the over. I don't know who the hell is going to win the game, but both teams are going to play fast. I would expect to see a lot of offense, and the Texans are a weakened defense because of this Al-Shair and Petrie.
Sal, first time I've talked to you, give me 30 seconds on Josh Allen and what happened last week. I've never seen anyone reinforce their MVP campaign in a loss. 3 rushing touchdowns, 3 passing touchdowns. He's got 3,033 yards and 23 touchdowns, only 5 picks. Plus, he's accounted for 9 touchdowns on his legs. There's not a more valuable football player, I don't think, in the league right now, but is he playing? He's playing better than Patrick Mahomes. Where does he rank against him? Have you seen John Elway? Who are we going to compare this guy to? He's a force of nature out there.
He's just a friggin' freak show, man. He's got more rushing touchdowns than O.J. Simpson and Terrell Davis. I saw this number. I'm like, as a quarterback, but he's not just that. Run first, pass second. He's 6'4", 6'5", 240, and he can run 4.6,
Sure.
4.5. He is one of the ultimate weapons in a league. He's the MVP right now, and I don't think there's any question. You know, the Goff and Saquon Barkley and Lamar, they're all hanging around. And the truth of the matter is, his number one competition, Mahomes isn't even anywhere in this race. But he's in the class when you mentioned the best of Lamar and Patrick Mahomes and Burrow and Allen. Can you imagine if Burrow's team was 8-5 instead of 5-8? What kind of MVP contest would we have? People look at his numbers. Look at what Burrow's doing on a shitty ass team right now. And don't look now, but if they go and roll out and win them out, they can still hang around. So, but Josh Allen's been the class of the league this year, and he's taken a team that was supposed to take a step back. And great players do that. They elevate the guys around them, and they say, well, I got to take on more responsibility, which is more responsibility. That's all you've had. So Elway was very similar, obviously, and John was the great arm and the ability to get out. But the one thing John didn't have, he can scramble, but he didn't have that straight line speed that Josh Allen has.
Yeah,
it's phenomenal. One thing that they did wrong when you got the MVP, Joe Brady and Sean McDermott, don't quarterback sneak when you need that timeout. Get that big fool on the edge, because that home field advantage is going to matter. And they let one get away.
Yeah.
I'm putting the ball in his hand. I don't care if it's in the parking lot. Give him the ball and say, go win it. And it would have been like a high school day when he had 7 touchdowns. He's the television local TV player of the week, Josh Allen. He's a freak show, and he's doing it on a team with not less talent, but probably less talent than they've had offensively in the past on the perimeter. And he's elevated his game, which tells me he's on a different level than most, and he's playing on Mars right now.
I would agree. Sals, I know you're busy today. Thanks so much for making time, brother. Love you. Thank you so much,
brother.
For the time.
Thank you. See you next week.
Sean Unfiltered, give him a follow. He is always entertaining, and what a great day to have him. And a seamless transition from talking about the Buffalo Bills. My buddy Ryan O'Halloran joins us, who covers that team for a living. And Ryan, I heard a little bit about what Sals was saying about Josh Allen. That's all right. I only paid for that microphone, you crazy bastard. He's a writer. He's a guy that writes for a living. We can give him a little bit of quarter here. This is a situation where you're looking at a quarterback that, I know in an era of Pat Mahomes, it seems crazy to say, but I don't know of a football player I've ever seen. This is Lamar Jackson. This is Joe Montana. This is Tom Brady, where I've seen them single-handedly put an organization on their back and will them the way that Josh Allen did against that Rams team. That's a damn good Rams team. Buffalo looked like they didn't even show up to play for the first part of that game, and end up with 3 passing touchdowns and 3. I think Otto Graham in the 100 years ago in the postseason is the only other guy to do it. Can you give some context about that performance and just where Allen is right now as far as the upper echelon of quarterbacks?
Yeah, Chad, good to join you today. It was historic, and a couple things. One of the few times where a guy clinched the MVP in a game he lost.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned Otto Graham, the only other quarterback who's done 3 passing, 3 rushing in the same game. Allen broke the Steve Young record he was tied with for most games with at least 2 and 2. And, it's Sean made a good point. He sort of got hung out to dry in that quarterback sneak. That's where you got to throw it 4 times. Tom Brady said that even before they broke the huddle. So, but Allen after the game, you've seen him down after losses, particularly playoff losses, but the look on his face in that post-game press conference in LA on Sunday was, what the hell else am I going to do?
Yeah.
But I think they bounce back and play well Sunday.
Sundays, I guess it's a big one. They traveled to Detroit, the 12-1 Lions, and I'm on this Lions bandwagon, Ryan, in that they've lost my whole life. I was there. I was pulling for Herman Moore. I was pulling for Barry Sanders, like all these iterations that we've seen where they've kind of come up for air a little bit, and it's never happened. And culturally, it means more in Detroit just because of what that city went through. One championship in Detroit, I think, is worth 15 in Phoenix or Miami or any other place where there's palm trees in your backyard. But they're susceptible, and their defense is vastly injured. And this is a Bills team that handed the Kansas City Chiefs their only loss. So I like them in this game. And yeah, that was a crazy freak occurrence against the Rams team that did that in 2018 or 19 against the Kansas City Chiefs, one of the best Monday Night Football games I've ever seen, the color rush uniforms. So they're no strangers to that. They've won 7 of their last 8 games. when they go in against an offense like that, though, in Detroit, I don't think they want to do what they did last week. We're gunning with these guys back and forth. I would assume they want to get back to let's run the football, let's be physical, let's grind it out. Or am I wrong there when you play the Detroit Lions?
Well, I think on defense, one of the talking points for the Bills were yesterday says, yes, Ben Johnson runs a lot of different stuff. They run motions, they run trick plays, but at their core, they want to punch you in the mouth with the run game. They have the best right tackle in football outside of Lane Johnson with Penei Sewell. That's Von Miller's description of him. So, the Bills right now, their defense right now, they can't stop the run because they're on the lighter side up front. So I think they maybe will call up a practice squad defensive tackle, Eli Anko, 325 pounds, just stand there. Don't get moved. Let your linebackers, make the tackle. So I think that's going to be the Detroit game plan. And then if you're the Bills, Sean McDermott was lamenting losing the trenches on offense and not running enough after Josh Allen had a historic game. How about praising your quarterback? So, but I do think they want to get James Cook, Ty Johnson, Ray Davis more involved in the run game and take the air out of the football just a little bit if your defense is again struggling.
It's such a wild one. There's so many the game tonight is nuts. I mean, there's so many ramifications. We were just talking about Miami, Houston, that both still have an enormous amount to play for. Peaking too early. I think that's a thing that happens. I think it happened with some Patriots teams that were trying to be undefeated. I don't know. The team of destiny gag, Ryan, we've heard that kind of a tag to a lot of people, especially with hindsight being 2020. The Lions being where they are, and they're talking about being the 1 seed. They might not even win their division. It's such a unique thing to have the killers in the NFC North that they have right there, especially coming off Darnold having the 5 touchdown performance, and that team's already gone into Lambeau and won. Like, that division, I know the NFC West and the NFC South have had some nutty finishes over the past couple of years, but do you remember a division being as top heavy as the NFC North is right now?
I don't, and it's what it harkens back to is when we were, at least when I was a kid, you're a little bit younger than me, is that NFC East was loaded, because it was the Redskins, then it was the Giants, then it was the Cowboys, and they sort of, late 80s, early 90s. And, the key for these NFC North teams is they beat up on our beloved AFC South. and that they had to be thinking, okay, whoever's going to lose to one of those teams, it's going to cost you. And, so has any of them lost anybody? But yeah, it's the
Bears.
Lions, don't forget about the Bears. But, the team of destiny stuff, that doesn't prevent you throwing 5 interceptions in a game in Houston like Jared Goff did. And they somehow still won the game. So the peaking too early thing is an interesting theory, interesting point, because I do believe in that a little bit, because sometimes maybe you've used all your plays or you're playing so well and then you're banged up and you're not going into the playoffs. So, one of the national narratives this week was, that loss was good for the Bills. How? Because it probably cost them the number 1 seed. And I would take the Bills over anybody in this stadium this year with this team, even though they've lost the last 2 years in the playoffs at home.
I don't think anybody wants to see the Rams. I think the entire NFC is rooting for the Seattle Seahawks to maintain their fingernail hold over that division. I don't know what to expect of the 49ers. They seem very injured and very weird this year. I think they maybe invested in some of the wrong guys, hindsight being 2020. I'll tell you what I'm over, Ryan. I'm all over the board. I apologize, but I like talking football with you. I'm over diva wide receivers. I really am. I'm over Deebo Samuel and the shit that he says. I'm over DJ Moore. This weird feud between AJ Brown and his quarterback, and you're at worst the second best team in the league, and you still can't stop bitching. And as great as Jamar Chase is, you got Joe Burrow this season talking about how Jamar Chase goes through the media to let him know to get the ball more. We always forgive this diva wide receiver mentality, but what I don't understand is Le'Veon Bell is still jokes are made about him and he's chastised. Like, if a running back steps out of line, it's this huge, crazy, variable that we can't account for. It's consistent with these wacky wide receivers. And I'm just kind of tired of it. Like, I'm kind of tired of you being the only one that it's forgiven for to come out and throw your quarterback under the bus. You beat the Panthers, who are playing some really good football right now, and Saquon has another big day. You have a problem with it. Like, I don't ever defend the Titans for getting rid of AJ Brown. Their resume speaks for itself, running off Rabel, Henry, and Brown in subsequent years. But I don't know, that narrative and having to have those stories manifest themselves, win or lose each week from that position group, I'm done with it.
Well, and these receivers think they're NBA players and can talk their way out of markets. I mean, Stephon Diggs right here in Buffalo.
Sure.
Buffalo's better because of it. What I don't get about these receivers is you get your money, your long-term second contract, and you're still whining. Well, you knew who your quarterback was going to be. And you mentioned San Francisco is teams get derailed by holdouts because Ayuk held out, Trent Williams held out. Well, they're still working their way into shape in mid-September, mid-October, and 49ers fell out of it. I think 49ers last stand is tonight. I mean, two teams that hate each other are just going to kick the crap out of each other tonight. So that should be a good one. But you're right about these receivers is nothing's ever enough. I mean, Jamar Chase, he realizes he has a nuclear weapon at quarterback. But he also says, okay, I want my money. Well, there's not enough money to go around just yet.
Sure.
And you're playing for an owner who only pays quarterbacks. That's his history. So that'd be an off-season subplot.
The part that makes me like, if you have Terry McLaurin, you're just so grateful. If you have Puka Nacua, like, because there are guys that do it. And watching Puka, and I know that he gets hurt all the time. Ryan, how are general managers not getting fired every day for that guy getting to the 5th round? How is that not a constant narrative in other cities that need a wideout?
I mean, it was the first time I watched him play in person on Sunday, and it looked like he was like 3 different guys.
Yeah.
He was just open. He jet sweeps. You know, he scored the clinching touchdown on a slip screen with a pick from Cooper Kupp. I mean, he was, and then you watch the replay when you're saying, okay, what were the routes? Well, he ran every route, and it was just a terrific player to watch. And you're right. It's okay. Brock Purdy's Mr. Irrelevant. He's played in 2 NFC title games. You know, Khalil Shakir here in Buffalo could be 1,000-yard receiver, 5th rounder out of Boise State. So guys fall through the cracks, but it's about identifying those guys and then coaching them up.
Can you talk with me? You saw the Rams in person. I picked them to win that division at the beginning of the year. They were getting Blake Corum involved. He averaged over 4 yards a carry. That's big for them. Puka had 162 yards receiving and 12 catches, and Cooper Kupp had a monster day. We don't even talk about him. And Stafford roll the clock back. I'm seeing Florio bring up the Rams potentially targeting Sam Bradford in the offseason. I'm like, okay, maybe that happens. And maybe Stafford hangs him up. I don't know. But as far as dangerous teams in the NFC right now, I know the Lions and the Packers and the Vikings and the Eagles, it's well warranted, but I go back to it. Talk about their speed and their ability to be out there and be a Sean McVay offense and spread the ball around. They were very impressive. Even in light of that's Josh Allen storming back on you with a chance to win. You have to stand up and still make plays. I just love the way the Rams are playing right now. Now they're getting some of these guys back.
Yeah, I mean, Sean is a brilliant play caller. And the stuff, you know, obviously their plan going into the game last week was throw it quick. I mean, and get Matthew Stafford on bootlegs, give him some more time for those longer developing routes. They use Kyron Williams as a devastating chip blocker on Rousseau, on Miller, even interior on a defensive tackle, just to give Stafford some more time. And they just run a lot of different over routes and sail routes where the corner has to stay with the guy for a long time. That's tough to do against those 2 receivers. I mean, you wouldn't even know a tight end was on the field. It was 11 personnel the whole game, 1 tight end, 3 receivers. And, you know, there's always a team like that. Like, you know, the Bills were 6-6 last year, and I'd give them last rights a couple of times. Well, 2 weeks later, I'm saying, don't let them in, guys.
Yeah.
Well, they should have beat Kansas City. So I think the Rams, you know, if they win the division, then you're hosting Minnesota, you're hosting Green Bay. I like that matchup for the Rams against both those teams.
All right, talk a little bit about Bradford. It's KOC is a guy, you know, he was in Washington like every good head coach when Mike Shanahan was here. And I know they've covered it and they put the graphic up ad nauseum. But when you look at like the top offensive minds in this league, the fact they all come from that tree that was if you weren't covering that Redskins team with Mike Shanahan and with Robert Griffin III and Dan Snyder and the dad handing the CD, I mean, it was bedlam. And all those guys were here. And I remember saying they were never going to fire Jay Gruden and make Sean McVay the head coach. Like, it wasn't going to happen. But it truly is a unique phenomenon, all of football. And I look at Minnesota, and why wouldn't they have confidence that Daniel Jones can just go in there and
Mhm.
have the season that Sam Bradford did if J.J. McCarthy doesn't get healthy quick enough? I don't want to disrespect Sam Bradford, and I think if the 49ers, rather than give their quarterback $50 million a year, should kick the tires on that guy? Absolutely. But it is interesting to see like what a offensive clinic that coach is able to do no matter who seems to be behind the center.
Yeah, I mean, I covered Mike's first 2 years in Washington, which was 10 and 11, and the staff is well documented. And just one real quick Ram story is, when a new staff comes in, I'll ask the players, who should I get to know on the staff? Who's the smartest guy? And I had 2 guys tell me in the Washington locker room, get to know McVay.
Wow.
And that paid off. I mean, and he's been, anytime I talk to him, relive the old days, but O'Connell, he is a little bit of a quarterback whisperer. The Daniel Jones move was brilliant to me because right now they're looking at him as next year's Darnold in case McCarthy's not ready. Because my guess is that there's going to be enough of a market for Sam Darnold that's going to guarantee him a starting job that he has to take it. Vikings say, thank you for your service.
What if they win the Super Bowl? I mean, that team can win the Super Bowl. That team's just, they got weapons all over the field. I mean, that offense is unstoppable. Like his lull in the middle of the season, Ryan, I remember people said, oh, Sam Darnold's coming back down to earth after that game in London. It's like they still won 2 out of 3 of those games. Like, what if they go to the Super Bowl with Darnold? He plays well. It's just, we can't afford you. Peace. We can win with somebody else. I don't know, man. That is Trent Dilfer, Elvis Gerback like pressure there.
I was just going to bring that up. I mean, they obviously draft J.J. McCarthy, who's coming in 2 knee surgeries. That's a red flag. But also, what their cap situation is. So, I mean, if they win the Super Bowl, they could probably tell Sam Darnold, here's a 3-year deal with the first 2 years guaranteed. You want to keep the band back together. If I'm Sam, I take that deal because you've made a lot of money already.
Yeah.
But the flip side of it is, and I don't really wait for, I mean, that's another lazy narrative, and I'm sure you'd agree. Well, Sam Darnold's going to be Sam Darnold eventually. Well, how about if he isn't? How about if he's actually getting good coaching and he's not in a fishbowl and he has one of the great receivers of all time at his disposal?
It's an interesting point. It's another reason why it's easy to say, well, Phil Jackson, he got to coach Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman, and they could have, anyone could have done that. Oh, then he gets Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. Like, I understand that, but there is a skill to taking talent and maximizing that talent and getting the most out of them. And to just say that any piece of personnel is going to work, Nick Mullins isn't going to take that team to where Sam Bradford is right now. I think that's incredibly disrespectful. And with that, I transition back to Coach Belichick, 333 wins. And one of the things Cowherd brought up, and I know Cowherd's a bit of an iconoclast and bombastic and people love him or hate him, but he did bring up the point that 44% of all games that Bill Belichick has coached, he's only won 44% of the games with 2 different franchises that he's coached without Tom Brady. But do we really think that Butch Davis has taken Tom Brady and winning 6 championships? No, it's fucking ridiculous. And he's got 2 more with the Giants in his time there. Talk to me as far as someone that's worked in sports your whole life. I don't want to know if you think he's going to win with UNC. We can all sit here and predict that. But as far as a moment in sport where there's this much upheaval in college football with the way they're changing the way they do business, and this guy with this resume going to UNC in the ACC, in 10 years, where are we going to look back and think about this particular move? How are we going to look at it?
I hope he's a success
because
I think it's going to be fascinating. I'm going to pay attention to North Carolina football more than I have. So I mean, it's clear the NFL had already rejected him, which I don't get. If I was an owner, I at least want to get him in my building and say, well, what's wrong with us?
Yeah.
And then also just to see, I have a GM in place. I'm sticking with him. Are you interested in being the head coach? Just to have something like that happen. But obviously his camp had read the leaves and so he goes to North Carolina. I'll say in 5 years, what we're going to say about Bill Belichick is he did not win a national championship, but that's tough to do. But he did get into the playoff when it goes to 12. It's 12 now. If it goes to 16, I think he'll make the playoff, because I think the key hire, if he can convince Josh McDaniels to come to North Carolina as the offensive coordinator, he made Mac Jones look functional. And to me, that would be if I'm a high school or portal quarterback, I'd want to play for Josh McDaniels because he coached Tom Brady.
Sure.
And so So I do think he will have some success there.
So my old buddy Will Brinson wrote this, and he tweeted it out today, and I guess he's going to have to eat a paper copy of it. But he said, any interest here is purely superficial and designed to generate buzz around both parties. This, of course, the marriage of UNC and Bill Belichick. It makes for spicy headlines, piles of social media engagement, and interesting theoretical discussion about whether someone at Belichick's age with his experience level could thrive in a college setting. But it ain't happening. If it does, I'll happily print out this column and eat it live on the air. And
enjoy lunch.
Yeah, exactly. We've had, 24 hours to digest this, and we're instant gratification society, but it did seem nutty. And it seemed like what you're talking about, Ryan, is let me beat the bushes of the NFL. Let them know that I'm not screwing around, that I'm willing to go take this job, but it was a threat. Now it ain't a threat. So if I'm Jerry Jones, or if I'm any of these teams that think, hey, we can compete, we're a coach away, and Bill Belichick's available, why am I so scared to bring him in? Do I have a general manager that's too scared for losing power? Like, how much of this is about bringing in the best coach I possibly can? And how much of this is about me personally not wanting to give up power? Because Bill Belichick being unhireable in the NFL at this point seems fucking ridiculous to me.
Yeah, the level of insecurity amongst people in charge is pretty comical, because even if you own an NFL team, even if you've inherited it, you probably have made some good decisions and hired some good people. And I don't get that part. I mean, if I was an owner that had a GM in place that I was committed to and wanted to hire a coach, the first thing I'd want, as I said before, ask Bill Belichick, okay, what's wrong with us? Second of all, I'd say, hey, you're not going to be in control of personnel, and you're not getting the band back together.
Yeah.
And so when this first surfaced over the weekend, my first thought was that Belichick was getting the interview rep to get ready for the NFL talks, because he only had one last year with Atlanta, and he hadn't had one for 30 years before that. So that was my first thought. But also, if you're Belichick and North Carolina is interested, you probably gave them a list of, I'm going to need this, this, and this. I'm going to need money here, there, and everywhere. And they said, okay. And I'm like, let's give it a shot. Yeah. And it doesn't remove him 2 years from now from going to the NFL. But that, to me, that would be a little bit more of a long shot.
The part that really mystifies me, Ryan, is you bring that up, and he seems to have a lot of energy, and he seems to have a motor that doesn't quit, and he's doing 30 different media gigs, and he's really good at them. Like, he's better than I thought that he would be. He seemed like such an angry curmudgeon, and he's not that guy. He was that guy when he didn't want to give anything to the media. That job pays well. He's good at it. But leaving the league without getting the all-time wins record from Don Shula, that is truly baffling to me. And I think it's to what you said. It's let me go here. Does anyone believe that Deion Sanders is going to be coach for life in Colorado? No. Especially after his kid's gone. I think he ends up in the league at some point. I think Belichick wants to go in 3 years, do what he said in that 400-page manifesto, and then somebody in the league is like, hey, we have a quarterback. He's underperforming. Can you come in here and help us win a Super Bowl? And then he gets that record. If I had to speculate as to what his true motivation ultimately is.
Well, and to use one of your other analogies, it would be the equivalent of Phil Jackson going to the Lakers.
Okay.
You have Kobe and Shaq in place. They just don't know how to win. And then you bring in Phil Jackson. But also, if you're Belichick, was it like 17 wins, something like that? You're looking at potential openings, saying, okay, it's going to take a long time to get those wins. Maybe just wait out to see if something else develops, which I think Ben Johnson could do in Detroit this offseason. I think he could sit out again, be the OC, and wait for something like Cincinnati open and work with Burrow. But
you really don't think that if Chicago came with the Brinks truck and says, Keenan Allen, look at all these. We've got Caleb Shirtley has showed enough to make you believe that if he got the right quarterback whisperer, I think that's the spot, especially inside of the division where he has all that intel on Detroit. That's a great spot for him.
I think it's the only one to me that would be attractive because of Williams. But you read and watch the Chicago coverage over the last couple of weeks, and who's in charge?
Yeah,
is it the president? Is it the GM? That's a red flag for a coaching candidate who will have options. They're going to hire somebody because they all do, but it's just a matter of, okay, is it going to be somebody who comes in carrying a big stick, or somebody's like, hey, I'm just glad I got a shot. Whatever you guys want to do, I'm good with it.
I'm looking at that gig, and whatever the opposite of that gig is, it is the New York Football Jets. And look, it's not my habit of just kicking the shit out of an organization when it's down, because there were so many years in Washington where that's what everyone did in the national media. But number of years since every NFL team has last made the playoffs, it is now 14 for the New York Football Jets. Next closest is the Broncos at 8, and then you have the Panthers and Falcons at 6, and then it's a long way to go. How do you I know that Sauce Gardner is still there. I know that Breece Hall is still there. They have some nice players, but all of those guys are capable of underperforming, as we see. Aaron Rodgers, I'm guessing, is not going to be there. We can talk about that. But how do you go out without sweeping change, without saying the owner is going to be Trump's ambassador again? He has no say. Like, how much squalor is enough for these guys with the ego you're talking about to make the change? How do you go out and try to find a head coach for the Jets next year after what we saw this year?
Well, it's not an attractive job for a GM or a coach. So first thing I would do is I would really start at the top, and I'd hire an executive vice president of football ops, who is the grand poobah. They hire the GM jointly. They hire the head coach. And if I'm ownership, I sign each to 6-year contracts. Remember, that's what San Francisco did with Lynch and
Right.
Shanahan, because they realized that this thing was down to the studs and they need to build it right back up. So the Jets, this is not a great quarterback class, but you may have to take one. But yeah, that is a real mess. Jacksonville, shocker, is again a mess if they clean house. So it's these jobs are just not appealing. And when you have that much work to do, that first year should not be held against you, because you got to get out of some cap mess. You got to rebuild the roster, the culture, the mindset. And this Jet team has talent, but maybe the best way for them to get going again is to trade some of that talent and acquire draft picks.
I think you're right. There seems to be this notion that Aaron Rodgers has zero value next year. And I think that's ridiculous with how quarterback starved this whole league is. And the one I always go back to, Ryan, everyone thinks I'm crazy, is San Francisco. We know that he wanted to play in San Francisco. And if I'm San Francisco, especially if I missed the playoffs and Brock Purdy had his chance to, all right, it's Brock Purdy time. Go out there and earn your money. It's like, okay, the Rams win the division. I'm not paying that guy Dak Prescott money. I'm looking at Jacksonville. Like, I'm looking at Dallas. I'm looking at these teams that G'd up all these quarterbacks just because that's what the market stipulates. And I'm realizing I can't do that with Brock Purdy. I don't think that there's a world where Kyle Shanahan looks at all this talent on his team with Brandon Ayuk coming back and says, Aaron Rodgers will listen to me. He wants to be here. Let's give him a year with this offense. That doesn't seem as insane to me as it does everybody else.
Well, 2 years ago, Kyle Shanahan kicked the tires on Brady.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So if Aaron Rodgers is going to have a couple options, I think Las Vegas is one because of Brady's influence.
Sure.
But you're right, San Francisco, if they feel he is functional, and when I watched him in person in that Monday night game, he reared back a couple of times and threw some darts. Couldn't really move that well, but maybe the 49ers say, hey, maybe you can get something for Brock Purdy, but then you're setting yourself, you're really going to have to start over the next year. So, but I do think Rodgers will have a couple options. It's up to him to decide, okay, if the only option is the Las Vegas Raiders, do I really want to get the crap kicked out of me at age 41 and a half?
He says he wants to put, the thing I can't get away from is, yeah, his shit is crazy. And like, I think I'd go to him and be like, hey man, I don't want you going on McAfee. It just causes too much consternation. Like, maybe you could talk about that. And he realizes that's not a good, but the point is that injury takes a year to recover from, and he's in his 40s. And so you would assume that he would be healthy, fully healthy going into whatever that season is. But if he goes to the team that Devontae Adams left, that Brady is the owner for, that Derek Carr would, I don't know, man. It is so crazy. Like, the strings that would be all tied together, it would look like a big bowl of fettuccine, which is, I'm a fan of. Cool story, bros. $9.99. Thank you for BTOS. Thank you for being here, brother, and thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Last one for you, Ryan, and thank you for being on with us. It's at Ryan O'Halloran on X. Highly recommend you give him a follow. The Nick Sirianni. people like Dan Campbell's act. I think the Lions are going to get bounced out of the postseason because of his act. All that going for it on fourth down on your 31. Like it was great against the Packers, but analytics don't care when it's the postseason. And you need to as a head coach. So why is he so likable with his kind of bravado and his offbeat way? And Sirianni just is kind of, the word odious comes to mind. Like he really is unlikable to me. And I don't like his act and the way that his players clearly love him. But I think that his craziness is going to be the reason why that team, as talented as they are, again stubs their toe and they're not able to capture a championship. Do you get the same vibes from him as a head coach as far as why people don't trust him and root against him?
Yeah, kinda. And he's from the area here in Buffalo. So last training camp, I went down there and they had an off day, and the PR guy says, "Hey, you want to come sit with Nick for a little bit?" So I sat in his office, and he had his feet up, and we're BSing about his road and stuff. And I enjoyed his company, and I enjoy watching his teams play. They've won 9 in a row.
Yeah.
They were 2-2. I thought he was going to be Robert Saleh, toe tagged mid-season. So, if the players believe in you and they believe in your schemes and your staff is making them better, Vic Fangio, great hire, fixing that defense. But, some guys with their demeanor on the sidelines just rub fans the wrong way and make the other team really root against you. Dan Campbell, to me, that is a game ball, locker room, fourth down creation a little bit. But that said, he's done a good job. So you got the Lions stubbing their toe. You got the Eagles stubbing their toe. Who comes out of the NFC?
I think either the Packers or the Vikings at this point. I really do. And then maybe some team here's what I also know, Ryan. I wouldn't want to play Tampa Bay right now. I don't want to play guys that are crazy grinders and footballers and don't have any fear of going on the road. It's why I look at the Rams and I look at the Buccaneers and I'm like, Christ, let's get home field advantage. Let's get a bye. Let's let somebody else take some swings at them in the first round because I don't want to get the first crack. So I like somebody doing what the Ravens have done, doing what the Giants have done, and going on a heater and blowing up some of these favorite teams because I do think that the Lions peaked too early and that they're susceptible. And I don't trust the head coach of the Eagles, and these are the best teams in that conference. So, yeah, I think some chicanery is afoot, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's Minnesota in the Super Bowl this year.
Home field doesn't mean, to me, it's great. It's not as important as that week off.
Yeah.
So hey, the burgundy and gold.
Hey, look, man, you're kidding around, but Jaden can go out there and throw, account for 4 touchdowns and beat a team that he shouldn't. Absolutely. I think they could shock some people and make some noise in the postseason. They got to get there still. It's not a foregone conclusion yet.
No, and there'll be a tough out in that first round because they may end up at Philadelphia 7-2 game. Which would be interesting, but it's good to see them, finding a quarterback. But just in our discussion, you're thinking to myself, these playoffs could be wide open.
Yeah.
The Chiefs could get the number 1 seed. They have been playing with fire for 3 months. Who gets hot? Your Rams analogy is correct.
Yeah.
Who's going to get in on a roll and will continue that roll?
Denver. I'd be scared as piss if I'm the Chiefs. Denver had you dead to rights in Arrowhead. The Chargers are another team. You don't think Harbaugh is going to be prepared for the postseason, regardless of how injured his team is, of Justin Herbert. And, I get it. Like, there's questions about it, but there's so many of these teams that are a year early that spook me, where if I got to win this conference and then I got to get this bye because I want somebody else to at least soften them up or potentially knock them off. It's going to be fun. Last year was a snoozer for me, especially with the Chiefs just ascension and the Ravens pissing down the side of the leg. This postseason, at least it feels like it's shaping up to be the complete opposite.
Yeah, big 5 days coming up for the Broncos, home against the Colts. So put a nail in the Colts, create some distance there, 3 games if they win, and then a short week next Thursday night at the Chargers. So the Broncos got to be thinking, hey, let's get that 6th seed. So let's play at Pittsburgh in the opening round instead of playing at Buffalo.
We haven't mentioned Pittsburgh at all. We haven't mentioned Russell Wilson, Mike Tomlin, and Pittsburgh. You don't like their chances at all, especially if they're getting a home game?
Yeah, they've lost a lot of home playoff games, but they keep winning. I don't know. I thought they were going to be terrible, but I underestimated them.
I picked the Bengals to win that division too. I don't know shit.
So did I.
Imagine being the Jaguars and figuring out a way to beat that Titans team last week and looking at yourself and the draft. Well, they don't need to draft a quarterback, so maybe they don't care. Maybe it isn't as dire to them as it is.
So are the Titans a candidate for one and done with Callahan?
I don't know how you. Everything should be on the. Did you know he didn't call plays?
He did. Yeah, that was Zach Taylor. Yeah. So
look, man, their ownership stinks, and they are all about perception over substance. And I think here's what they did: they fired a guy that's now a candidate for be the MVP of the league, the best wide receiver on arguably the best team in the NFC. They drafted Treylon Burks to replace him. And then Vrabel's going to be one of the hottest. Now the Belichick's out of it. I think he's going to be one of the hottest commodities available. I mean, they're just a franchise in turmoil. And now they're pretending like they didn't go all in this year to try to win this season with L'Jarius Sneed. And they paid the center the most anyone's ever paid a center. And they brought in Tyler Boyd. And get the fuck out of here. Like, they have no idea what they're doing. They have no identity as a franchise right now, which is sad because Tony Pollard was a nice pickup. Like, he's been a bit of a renaissance there. They have a brand new stadium they're going to be moving into that's gorgeous. There's some nice things going on there, but they just don't have an identity anymore.
I still think that job could be attractive because of the division.
Not because of the quarterback. Don't say because of the quarterback.
But you got to clean out the GM and have a coach who says, okay, I'm going to draft a quarterback and I'm going to have a say in picking the GM, because they need Las Vegas. Got to figure Antonio Pierce to be one and done. Tennessee, one and done potentially. So it just goes to show when you hire a head coach who's never called the plays and doing both jobs for the same time, it's a lot.
So Dion, you want them to hire Dion and then draft Shedeur, because that's what you're talking about there. He'd have the pimp hand to accomplish everything you're talking about.
Oof. But I do think Sanders will be a good quarterback, but he is a pocket guy, so you got to be able to protect him.
They can't do that. They can't protect. They can't draft linemen either, which is even worse. No one cares about the Titans. It is at Ryan O'Halloran, Buffalo News. Thank you, buddy. Great to talk to you again. It's been too long. Let's do it again before the playoffs.
All right, Chad. Thanks, bud.
That is my guy, the great Ryan O'Halloran. Been doing radio shows with me for 100 fucking years. Always love talking sports. Hit the like button, you cowards. Our numbers were down today, but that don't matter because the podcast pays me money on iTunes and Spotify. Suck it from the back. Thank you again, Cool Story Bros, for being our only super chatter of the day. Hit the like button. All right. Big one tonight. I'm excited. Quick plug. Chad Dukes versus the World returns on Friday. If you are listening to this on podcast or watching live, you can go over to youtube.com/Chad Dukes Show. And the video is already up. You can see for yourself. We're going to give you 4 motherfucking hours, just like we used to, just like in the old days, the blessed days, when I used to do your entire afternoon drive. Of course, those days are long gone. I just drove into D.C. For the first time in a long time, and I don't miss that for a goddamn sight. That part of it can stick it up it's a stick hole. But go on over to youtube.com/Chad Dukes Show and click on the Chad Dukes versus the World, the return part 3. You can just like it, or you can hit that little bell that says notify me. And you can even click join if you want. And even if you don't want to become a member, it's very cheap. I think it's like $4. You get the entire back catalog, all the previous 2 episodes of CDVTW, and all the Solid Dudes episodes, all the fun stuff. You can at least turn on gifted membership. There is a link pinned at the top of the chat. Also in the bio, this is the same link. And then a lot of times when I'm doing shows in here, people gift memberships, and you can get one FREE. But Friday, 2 o'clock, CDVTW, The Return, episode 3. I hope to see you there. All right. Thanks to everybody that tuned in. No thanks to everybody that didn't. And thank you to my guests, Sean Salisbury and Ryan O'Halloran. Please send them a message on X. Let them know you enjoyed their time here on the program. And always remember, friendos, when BTOS isn't on the air, you should be going long, real long.
Hey, what do you got?
Both types of sports.
Yeah, what's it do? Go long. Real long.